Well, welcome to the Cinnabar. Now, this episode's kind of a kickoff to a project that I've been looking forward to for a while. Today we're going to be testing out a first model 1873 Winchester. And not just a first model, this is a 3-digit serial number 73. Now, this is one I bought off of an internet auction, and it goes to show you that even some of us who ought to know better get taken from time to time. See, this one was advertised as a honest first model 1873 with some wear. Unfortunately, the pictures weren't all that great, and I didn't look close enough because as soon as I unboxed it, it became very obvious that there's nothing honest or original about the gun. All the metal surfaces have been refinished, kind of a matte finish, an older type of a restoration. All the wood's been refinished. So this one's really fair game to restore and to restore right, and I'm kind of excited about the prospect of a gun like this coming through the shop and being able to make it look like it should. Now, I'm not going to mention the auction house that sold this thing and called it an honest gun, because there's nothing real honest about it, but it is a shame that a real milestone gun like this was finished so poorly and then misrepresented. But we're going to make a silk purse out of a sow's ear. I guess that's how the saying goes. So stick around, let's look a little closer at it, and then we're going to shoot it a few times and just see how it shoots. So here's a little closer look at this old 73, and really it's not too bad of an old rifle to start off with for our project. Now, we can see the wood's beat up some here, and there's actually some decent figure in this buttstock down here. The metal's actually in pretty good shape. Unfortunately, it's just got that kind of a matte finish re-blue to it. It's got a replacement sight here that's been epoxied in because it didn't fit the dovetail quite right. And interestingly enough, in 4 places on each side of the stock here and up front on the receiver, it's marked WCCC, and I haven't been able to find any reference to that, but you know, it's possible it was a Civilian Conservation Corps gun, although, you know, that was probably 50 years or so after this thing was made. But anyway, we'll leave that there. It's part of the history of the gun when we restore the gun. Now, a couple of things you'll notice about the first models is, you know, the lever's a little different. The lever's more like a 66. We don't have the boss here to hit that trigger block safety because they don't have a trigger block safety. We can see that it has a different type of dust cover, and the dust cover is missing on this one. This one's a mortised in rather than being on the rail like the second and third models. There's just a lot of little differences here. The lever latch here is a screw in rather than just a twist type, so it screws in and out threaded. The magazine tube cap is threaded on the end, just like the 1866s, and there are a few other subtle differences too with these first models. And there are some differences in the really early ones that we can't really see or aren't readily apparent, and one is just the alloy that's made, that the receiver's made out of. It's actually a forged iron alloy rather than the steel receivers that came later on, and that's only in the really early models. And then it's got a 5-groove barrel in it, so it's like the 66s, the early 66s. These real early 73s had a 5-groove barrel too, and then they went to a 6-groove a little later on. This one's actually got a pretty decent bore. Okay, so we're going to have to get our shooting in here pretty quick. I see the thunderheads are building over Slide Mountain, and I really don't want to be out here in a thunderstorm in the midst of all these big tall pine trees. But I mentioned that this has a really good bore, kind of surprisingly good. But just to check it, I slugged this thing before I brought it up here, and it actually has kind of an oversized bore. And I don't know if that's indicative of a early first model 73 or not. I've never slugged one this early before, but I was a little surprised. It comes out at 430, 431. So what we did is we loaded up some 431 soft cast lead bullets and over 2F black powder. And of course, we know it's perfectly safe to shoot light loads of smokeless in these 73s, but you know, just wouldn't be right in a 3-digit 73, would it? So I've got the crony out here. We're going to put one on paper just to have an idea where it hits and see how fast these black powder rounds are going to fire. This actually is a set trigger too, which was kind of a nice surprise because the auction house had missed that particular feature. I took this thing all apart and everything seems to be in real good shape, but this will be the test here. Okay, we'll go ahead and set that trigger. Now, front sight's bent a little bit to the right, so I'm thinking we're going to probably hit to the left. 1147. That's a little lighter than the factory. They had them at about 1300 from the factory, so we filled that case right up with 2F and even compressed it a little bit. That's actually a pretty nice mild round for a early iron frame 73. Let's go see where we hit. Okay, so it looks like our windage isn't too bad, about a ½ inch to the left, so maybe that was just somebody's way of windage adjustment on that front sight, just to bend the top of it over instead of moving the whole sight. But we're about 5 inches low, so let's see what we can do about taking care of that. Okay, so on these early 73 rear sights that are similar to the 66 rear sights, we have 3 options. We can use this one, which is where we shot from that first time. We can flip it up, and we've got a couple options here. We can use this middle one or the top. So we'll see what happens when we use that middle one there. Okay, so let's grab another of these 431 black powder rounds. Set the trigger. That one was 1150, very consistent. Okay, well that's a little better. We're climbing up there. Let's see what the top of that sight will do for us. And it looks like we might have to rush it a little bit because those thunderheads are building. Okay, so to give it a good test, we're going to go ahead and run a few rounds through it and see how she does. Now that last shot off the top of that rear sight was high clear off the paper, and I kind of suspected it would be because it's awfully high up there. This one actually I think would be best to put a little shorter front sight on it and use the bottom of that rear sight. But that's what we got today, so this is what we're going to shoot with. We'll just have to shoot a little bit high because it's shooting kind of low. Load her with 8 rounds. Of course, we can put 15 rounds in these 73s. Okay, so we're going to start off right up close with that jug up front, just to get our bearings. Oh, did the job. Okay, now we got that dialed in. Let's see if we can hit some steel out there. Oh yeah. Oh, right under it there. Uh-oh. Oh, there we go. What in the world? Oh, I guess, well, there's a hole in it. Everything's running out of it. Must have been a little low. Let's see if we can get that last jug up there. There we go. Oh, we still got one more. Let's hit some steel. Oh, that steel is getting away from us. Well, it isn't grouping up just great, but you know, this does have an oversized bore, and I think these 431 is about as high or about as big as you can go. It's just getting tight in the chamber just as we close the lever on this thing. So, you know, and a 432 is probably, well, I don't have any 432, and I don't have any molds or sizing dies that would go that high. 4440, it's really hard to get anything more than about 430, 431 into the case. They have such a thin neck, and of course then again we're looking at problems with chambering. But that's a fun old gun. I mean, one of the very first 1873s produced. It's in the 600 serial number range. Produced at a time when Winchester didn't even know if these were going to find their market. You know, they're just such an iconic rifle today, but when this thing was produced, it was a newfangled, new on the market rifle that we didn't even know, or Winchester didn't even know if they were going to be popular or not. And of course the rest is history, with 720 some thousand of them made over a 50-year period. Now a lot of these really early first model 73s up to about serial number 800 had targeting information in the factory records. Now this one being in the 600s, I was really hopeful that we could get how it shot when it was brand new at the factory. But I saw Jessica Bennett from the Cody Firearms Museum out over at the Colorado show, and she showed me the records, and there's some gaps in there where they didn't write it down, and this is one that didn't have it. Would have been really cool to compare how it shot when it was brand new to today, and I suspect it probably shot a little better at that time. And I want to give a big shout out to those folks at the Cody Firearms Museum. Just amazing work they do, and the fact that we have such almost instant access to those records is just fantastic. Jessica and Danny and the whole crew out there are just fantastic. Now, we may go ahead and try this with some jacketed bullets, see if we can group it up a little bit better, shoot a little better, or maybe it's just the operator error. I have to admit to that from time to time. But it sure is fun to shoot this old girl. I mean, what a piece of history this thing is. So stick around, check in from time to time, see how we're doing on this. I've got about a month's worth of customers' guns in the shop that I'm working to get out of there so that I can get to some of my own projects. And then if you saw that rifling machine I bought back at the Colorado show, we're setting up to try to get to where we can produce some of our own reproduction rifle barrels. So, you know, we just got a lot on our plate right now, and then we'll get to some of these really interesting projects and invite you folks along with us. Thanks for joining us today. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Until next time, happy trails from the Cinnabar.